Rain fell against the glass walls of a mansion that gleamed like a sculpture of steel and light. Inside, blueprints lay scattered across a mahogany desk, each one marked with red ink, notes, measurements, and something else. A single phrase circled in the corner read, "Every design hides a secret." Daniel Whitmore was the city's most celebrated architect. His buildings were masterpieces of symmetry and precision, admired by critics and envied by peers. To the world, he was a visionary. To those who knew him, he was a perfectionist, brilliant, charming, and cold. He lived in the house he designed himself, a glass fortress overlooking the skyline. It was flawless, every line deliberate, every shadow calculated. But behind the perfection, something darker was taking shape. His wife, Elena, had once been the center of his world. She was elegant, kind, and patient, the perfect complement to his ambition. But over time, Daniel's obsession with control began to consume their marriage. He dictated her schedule, her friends, even the color of her dresses. To him, life was a structure to be engineered, and Elena was part of the blueprint. Then, one stormy night, Elena was found dead at the bottom of their marble staircase. The police arrived to find Daniel kneeling beside her body, his face pale, his voice steady. He said he'd been at a client dinner across town. He said he came home to find her like this. The scene looked like an accident, a tragic fall. The staircase was slick with rainwater from an open window. There were no signs of struggle, no forced entry, no missing valuables. Detective Laura Hayes was the first to notice that something didn't fit. The angle of the fall, the position of the body, the lack of defensive wounds, it was too neat. Too perfect. Daniel's alibi was airtight. He'd been seen at a restaurant with clients from 7 to 10:30. Security cameras confirmed it. Credit card receipts matched. His car's GPS showed he was miles away when Elena died. But Hayes had seen perfection before, and she knew it was often a mask. She began to dig into Daniel's life. His colleagues described him as a genius who demanded absolute precision. His assistants said he was impossible to please. His clients adored him, but his employees feared him. And Elena? She had been planning to leave him. She'd spoken to a divorce lawyer just weeks before her death. When Hayes searched Daniel's office, she found something strange, a set of blueprints for his home, annotated in red. They weren't just architectural notes. They were instructions, sightlines, soundproofing, hidden compartments. It was as if Daniel had designed his house not just to live in, but to control. The deeper Hayes looked, the more she realized Daniel's alibi was a structure, built with the same precision as his buildings. Every detail supported the next. Every witness, every timestamp, every receipt, perfectly aligned. Then came the first crack. A traffic camera caught Daniel's car leaving the restaurant parking lot at 8:47 p.m., nearly 2 hours before he claimed to have left. When confronted, Daniel said he'd lent his car to an assistant. The assistant denied it. Hayes returned to the Whitmore home with a search warrant. She studied the blueprints again and noticed something odd, a section of the basement that didn't match the physical layout of the house. There was a wall where there shouldn't have been one. Behind it, they found a hidden room. Inside were soundproof panels, surveillance monitors, and a workstation connected to the home's security system. On the desk sat a computer filled with time-stamped video files. The footage showed Daniel leaving the house hours before the murder and returning minutes after. But one file was missing, the one that would have shown what happened between those times. Forensic experts recovered fragments of the deleted footage. At 8:52 p.m., Elena was alive, pacing the living room. At 9:03, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. At 9:07, the camera feed cut out. When it resumed at 9:18, Elena was gone. Daniel had deleted the crucial 11 minutes, the exact window of her death. But how could he have been in two places at once? The answer came from an unexpected source, a struggling actor named Ethan Cole. He bore a striking resemblance to Daniel. Hayes discovered that Daniel had hired Ethan to attend the dinner meeting in his place. The lighting in the restaurant was dim, and the clients had only met Daniel once before. Ethan had been paid to play the part while the real Daniel drove home, killed his wife, and returned before anyone noticed. It was a murder built like a building, every angle calculated, every flaw hidden. When police arrested Daniel, he didn't resist. He smiled. He told them they'd never prove it. There were no fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses. But Hayes had one more piece of evidence. Microscopic traces of plaster dust were found on Daniel's shoes, the same plaster used in the hidden room's construction. And under Alina's fingernails, forensic techs found a fragment of that same plaster. It was enough to place him at the scene. The trial became a national obsession. The media called it the architect's murder. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, artists, and curious onlookers. Daniel's defense painted him as a grieving husband, framed by coincidence. The prosecution told a different story, one of obsession, control, and design. They showed the jury the blueprints, the hidden room, the deleted footage, and Ethan Cole's testimony. Ethan confessed that Daniel had paid him $10,000 to impersonate him for one night. When the verdict came, the courtroom fell silent. Guilty. Daniel Whitmore was sentenced to life in prison without parole. In prison, he became a legend. He spent his days sketching buildings, writing essays about perfection and control. He never admitted guilt. When Detective Hayes visited him one last time, he looked at her through the glass and said, "Every structure has a flaw. You just have to know where to look." Years later, during renovations on the Whitmore mansion, workers discovered another hidden room, one that had never been found during the investigation. Inside were sketches, models, and a single note pinned to the wall. "Perfection is the art of hiding mistakes." Daniel Whitmore's buildings still stand across the city, monuments to precision and madness. Some say his obsession with symmetry mirrored his need for control. Others believe he saw life itself as a structure to be engineered. But one truth remains: Daniel Whitmore built more than buildings. He built illusions. And in the end, his greatest creation wasn't a skyscraper or a mansion. It was a murder, designed to be perfect. Perfection, however, is an illusion. Every plan, no matter how flawless, has a weakness. Daniel believed he could design his way out of guilt, out of consequence, out of humanity itself. But even the most brilliant architecture can't hold forever. Because when you build your life on lies, eventually, the foundation cracks. He was an architect who built dreams and destroyed lives. A man who turned design into deception, and perfection into murder. That was the story of Daniel Whitmore, the architect who built his own alibi.